Ray Sherwin once said, "If there were anything such as a chaos credo, it would go something like this. I do not believe in anything. I know what I know, and I postulate theories which may or may not enter my system of adopted beliefs when those theories have been tested. There are no gods or demons, except for those that I have been conditioned into acknowledging and those I have created for myself. I create and destroy beliefs according to their usefulness. In the words of the wise, nothing is true, everything is permitted." I opened with that because I thought that that was a good summary, good overview that Ray Sherwin gives on really the essence of chaos magic. So this video is going to be the first of a series of videos that I'll be doing about chaos magic. This first video, I'm going to talk about essentially what chaos magic is as an overview, give you a little bit of an introduction, and then over the course of the future videos, we'll get a little bit further into some of the concepts of chaos magic, some things that you are probably familiar with or at least heard of, and some things that may be new for some of you. So let's get into it. Chaos magic really hasn't been along for all that long. It's probably been about 50 or so years, but there were some people that came out with some ideas and some concepts that really helped lay the foundation for chaos magic. And one of them is Austin Osman Spare. Back in the early 1900s, he shared his approach and introduced people to sigils. So yes, we can thank him for giving us today's more modern version of sigil creation and sigil magic. He also discussed his point of views on belief itself and how belief is actually something that creates limitations. Belief systems create these limitations that we end up putting on ourselves, and that really a goal should be to break free of those limitations, break free of those belief systems, and instead use belief systems simply as a tool to better oneself. Over the next several decades, you see other writers put out more concepts, more literary works that built on the foundation of chaos magic, until finally around the 70s is when you have two writers in particular that really open the gates, so to speak, to the formation of chaos magic. And that's Pete Carroll and Ray Sherwin. Pete Carroll with his book Liber No, and Ray Sherwin with his Book of Results. In Ray Sherwin's Book of Results, he took some of the basis that Austin Osman Spare established for sigil magic, and he expanded on that. And between Austin Osman Spare and Ray Sherwin, we have what we know today as sigil magic and all of the different creations and methodologies and different types of sigils that we see today. So chaos magic is often referred to as a magical system. And I do that myself sometimes as well, but really and truly, Chaos magic is really more of a philosophy, a magical philosophy. It's really a rather cerebral approach to magic, both on an emotional and spiritual level, as well as intellectually. So one of the things about following a chaos magic philosophy, know thyself, magician, know thyself, witch, that's very, very important to have that inner dialogue and that understanding and comfort with yourself and your practice. Chaos magicians, or chaots or chaoists, you'll hear it called multiple different things. We generally use whatever belief systems and whatever magical systems we feel is necessary for the time. So some people try to equate it to eclecticism. I'm not a big fan of that word, but in essence, when somebody claims they're eclectic, they're essentially pulling from multiple practices, usually all though within witchcraft, and they are establishing their own practice, and then that's what they pretty much move forward with. Whereas chaos magicians, chaots, they don't do that. Working a goal they may feel may benefit from a ceremonial magic ritual, or perhaps to reach another particular goal, another intention, perhaps vampiric magic may be in order for this. So it really is incredibly individualized, unique to the circumstance. And so it is not just about the use of the different magical systems or practices for the one specific goal at the time, but also if there's any surrounding beliefs with that, then the chaot embraces those beliefs. So for a very obvious example, if for some reason I felt a particular outcome, a particular goal would best be served by using Wicca, then for that goal and that goal alone, I would be completely immersed in Wicca if that's what I chose. I would not only use their methodologies in magic, but I would use their belief system. I would call on the Lord and Lady. I would hold wholeheartedly onto that belief system for that period of time. To some of you, it sounds like in some ways you're kind of role-playing, and in some ways you are. Because in chaos magic, remember, belief is considered a tool. It's not part of who we are. It's not part of our situation, our spirituality. It literally is just another tool. And the last thing about chaos magic, just in general, is that many chaots are considered really, they really look at themselves as more scientific. It's a scientific approach. As I said, it's more intellectual. It's about experimentation. It's about trials and results. What's working, what's not working. And this all stems from chaos theory, because remember, with chaos theory, basically it's a situation where you have a seemingly random event that can ultimately lead to or affect an immense change that you didn't realize was going to happen. Again, the butterfly effect. So it's that kind of mentality that we are going to reach and grab and find something, a belief, a practice that we feel is going to create those changes most effectively to reach the goal that we want. So let's get into some chaos magic concepts. I'm not going to go into them overly in depth. You will see me talk about them more in depth in future videos, but this is just more of an overview to introduce you to these concepts. So the first one is, and forgive me because I always get tongue-tied when I say this, immanentize the echelon. So what does that mean? So it's not imminent, it's immanent. And immanent basically means all present, all the time, everywhere, all at once. And the echelon refers to the end of the world as we know it. And so when you hear a Kayot refer to the immanentization of the eschaton, it basically is us saying that we realize that, yes, things are ending constantly. But again, think about what that really means, because it's not that the world is blowing up every second of the day. It means that things are constantly changing. And so that means destruction of something, the end of something, in order for something new to come out of it or to be modified. And so immanentization of the eschaton means that we realize that things are ever changing, again, going back to chaos. Another concept is what's known as the pandemonium. So the idea of the pandemonium it's a little tricky. In some ways, it's kind of being sarcastic, but at the same time, it really does have purpose. And what I mean by that is because usually when you see new movements, spiritual movements, magical movements, you tend to hear people talking about it's a new eon. Oh, it's a new growth, where there's a new eon coming. And so at one point, some chaos magic practitioners felt, hey, we don't want to be left out. We need an eon too. And that's where the pandemonium comes from. Basically, this is the state, the incubator of new ideas. It's more of a state of mind, I guess you can say. And so as we look at our different scenarios and different situations and evaluate the beliefs and the practices at the time of what we think are going to work best, we are existing in the pandemonium. And unlike other eons or other spiritual groups or I don't want to say fads, but the trends that are happening at the moment, it actually promotes individualization as opposed to following the group mindset. So it encourages individuality to look and see what's going to work best for you. The next concept is something known as Kia. Now, Kia was something that was introduced by Spare, and for lack of a better word, probably the easiest way to equate it is it's could be equated to chaos, but honestly, it's beyond description. It really is beyond definition. Kia is often assumed to manifest in dualities: male, female, white, black, good, bad, right, wrong. But to a chaot, those dualities are not polar opposites. They're not dichotomies. They're actually related, linked. So instead of thinking like a yin and yang or sides of a coin, think of like two arms. Your right arm and your left arm are opposite of each other, but they're connected to your chest. And what Spare says is that we should be looking to essentially surpass that dualistic mindset. Look at both sides as a whole and go beyond that polarization of this or that. That mindset he refers to as the neither. Yes, I know that sounds kind of similar to Stranger Things, but trust me, he thought of this long before the folks on Stranger Things were even born. This is actually really reminiscent of the Hindu concept of neti neti, which means not this nor that. And it's actually not, he doesn't outright say that it's related to that, but it's not surprising that it's similar to that. If you end up studying Austin Osman Spare, you'll find that he was very, very influenced by Eastern philosophies, Eastern magical practices, Eastern beliefs. And so it makes sense that the neti neti concept is most likely what stemmed the neither neither. Another significant concept of chaos magic is the concept of the subconscious being a key role, key player in our magical practice and in the focus of the actions, what we do. The subconscious, actually, really more specifically, where the conscious and the subconscious meet is where a chaot truly believes that that's where our magical abilities are the strongest, where they lie. And so you will find throughout the videos, you will see that one of the primary goals is accessing the subconscious in order to bring our wants, needs, desires, our workings to fruition. The last concept I want to go over, it's kind of a concept, it's also a symbol. And so I wanted to go over this symbol that I think looks familiar probably to a lot of you. I'm going to guess that probably most of you don't really know what this symbol stands for. And so I wanted to go through this symbol a little bit to explain about the 8-pointed star of chaos magic. So this symbol of chaos magic actually represents what's known as the eightfold division of magic. So the 8 forms of magic are actually coordinated with colors. So when we look at the 8 rays of chaos, the first ray is designated by the color known as octarine. Now, if you've never heard of that color, you're not alone, because unless you are a comic fanatic, then you probably won't recognize that. This term comes specifically from a comic fantasy known as Discworld. It was a novel by Terry Pratchett. It's a color that is only supposed to be visible to wizards and cats. Represents the power of being, the ability of the chaos magician to be original and the ability to be self-motivated. The next ray is black. Black represents the magician's maturity and wisdom. You as a chaot are responsible for who you are and all that manifests around you without exception. The blue arrow represents abundance. It represents the expansion and opportunity, the expansion of new prospects opening up, becoming available to you, and lifting of any restrictions that you feel are there. The green arrow represents attraction and harmony. Desiring something is not wrong. To a chaot, it's more about what you desire. And so this is about embracing and developing your own personal magnetism, your ability to attract whatever it is you want. The yellow arrow is for balance and vitality. The chaot seeks to be what we want to be, what he or she wants to be, embracing all that you can become. The silver arrow is sometimes represented as purple. That represents response and imagination. So this is basically your emotions, channeling your emotions, being in touch with your emotions, understanding your emotions. The orange arrow is for communication and represents the mind. So the conscious mind is a tool that, of course, we all use for learning, and we apply that to advance our knowledge and advance our abilities. To a chaot, the mind is itself a magical tool. When it comes to magic, you're dealing with not just the processes and methodologies of magic, you really are dealing with the science of using the mind. And lastly, the red arrow. This arrow is representing energy and action. This is our driving force that we put forward to get things done. There are essentially 6 principles of chaos magic that pretty much every chaot knows about. Now, it's a little misleading because Principles sounds like they're rules, like there's 6 rules, but there really are no rules. So these are not hard and set truisms, if you will, but it is a general overview and concept to help a chaot understand, and a new chaot especially, to understand kind of the driving factors of this philosophy. So the first principle, a chaot strives to avoid dogma and not fall into the traps of dogma. Dogma is obviously a belief system, usually religious in nature, that a chaot considers to be very restricting and very limiting. So you will be hard-pressed to find a true chaot that subscribes to dogma, unless they are grasping onto a particular dogma for a particular goal, for a particular working. At that time, yes, they may be fully invested into that dogma because they may feel like that's what they personally need to make their working come to fruition. I'm rather contradictory in my actions, and for a chaot, that's not uncommon at all. It's okay to disagree with yourself. We will often have things that we are literally contradicting ourselves. And that's okay. That's part of growth. And that is part of breaking through the limitations, using what you need at the time, and then moving on. And then going back to what I was talking about earlier of breaking through that manufactured idea of the morals of good versus bad, right versus wrong, those polar opposites, that doesn't exist when it comes to chaos magic philosophy. It doesn't exist in other types of magical practices as well, such as folk magic, but very much so in chaos magic philosophies, there is no polarization or denotation of good versus bad or those kinds of massive polarities. It's this release of dogma that really, in essence, is the core and leads to what many people are familiar of knowing that is associated with chaos magic, and that is the statement, nothing is true, everything is permitted. That statement actually, believe it or not, did not come from chaos magic. That statement originally is attributed to Hassan-i Sabah. I hope I said his name right. But he actually was a historical figure from the 11th century. So very, very old reference. He was actually known as the Old Man of the Mountain. The second principle is about personal experience. Personal experience is vital. There's nothing more important and has more of an impact than your own personal experience. So this is where the studying, reading versus doing comes into play. And so it's a balance. The best way to equate it, hopefully it doesn't make you guys uncomfortable, but like take sex, for example. Like you can talk about sex all day long. You can fantasize. You can read books on what to expect, but until you actually do it, you really can't say that you have experienced it or know what it feels like. And so personal experience is key to the chaos practice. The next principle of chaos magic is regarding deconditioning. Deconditioning one's beliefs, not just about dogma and things like that, but beliefs about oneself. Deconstructing your ego. Going back to Carl Jung's definition of the persona, the ego being where the persona comes from. That's our mask. That's our face. That's what we generally subconsciously or sometimes consciously want people to think who we are. But sometimes it's what we think who we are. And it's about breaking that down and really getting to know our true self and finding our true self. The next principle, is technical excellence, technical aptitude. So a misnomer, a misunderstanding of chaos magic and chaos magicians is sometimes people think like chaos magicians don't really have a lot of good technique because they're just kind of doing whatever. But that's actually completely opposite. It's the furthest from the truth. So technical aptitude and really learning multiple techniques, getting well versed in those different methodologies is a goal for a chaot. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because if you're going to utilize multiple magical systems and multiple techniques, then when you do that, you need to know what you're doing and be able to adapt and perform those techniques when you need it. So technical performance is very important. That is not something to be overlooked. The next principle is taking diverse approaches. So again, like you've already heard me say, we don't have one approach or just say this is what we do all the time. We do get very diverse in our approach based on the specific circumstances. That's opposite to the normal traditional approach of magical practice, whether it be witchcraft or ceremonial magic or what have you, is that there's a defined process and that's what you do. Well, for a chaot, it's completely opposite. So in essence, it's not the usual identifying with a particular practice. It's more the sense of a meta identity, being able to identify with multiple practices, multiple approaches, multiple methods. And the last principle is utilizing gnosis. So we're going to do a whole video on gnosis alone, but just as an overview, essentially gnosis is a way that we reach our subconscious. Now, how we do that, the methodologies of achieving gnosis, there are multiple methods, but you can categorize them in two main methods, which is inhibitory or excitatory. Inhibitory is basically what it sounds like. It's going internal. So often through various forms of meditation to achieve or reduce the stimuli. It's basically getting to a place of sensory deprivation. Excitatory gnosis is using more physical type procedures to get to that state of gnosis. So one of the things that you'll hear me talk about a little bit further is the death posture. The death posture is a way to purposefully make yourself pass out. There's other physical types of techniques, such as chemical uses. It could be even through the method of achieving orgasm. But again, we will go through a whole video dedicated to achieving gnosis and how to accomplish that. So I leave you with this chaos catechism. Now, mind you, there's no set structure to this, just like most things with chaos magic. And yes, it is a little bit of sarcasm calling it catechism. And probably I would say 25 years ago or so, some chaots came up with this, and it's sort of carried on. As you can imagine, there's no set structure. You don't have to use it. You can change it up if you want. You can change it around, change the words, or you can just ignore it. We believe in almighty chaos, mother of matter and ether. Nothing is true and everything is permitted. There is no God but chaos, the pact, its ministry on earth. There is no being, all is doing. There is no self. We do all the gods and goddesses. Freedom over truth. Probability rules, chaos reigns. Pestilential religions, putrid ideologies, to entropy, make my eon. We are its staff, sword, chalice, and sheed. We know, we will, we dare, and we are devious. Today the world, Tomorrow, the solar system. We immanentize the eschaton. We invoke the pandemonium.